Hi, good morning to everyone who's joined us so far. Before we get stuck into everything, I'd like you to tell me where you're from. Where are you dialing in from this morning? Drop your answers into the chat. We just want to say hi to all of you. So please let us know where you're dialing in from. We're excited to have you as always. Let's see. Good morning, Lucky and Miranda. Good to have you. Bloemfontein, Johannesburg. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Lincoln and William Polokwane. Hi, Polokwane is in the house. Fantastic. And for the majority of you who've joined in online, we've got a poll running. We just want to find out who's in the room. Are you an entrepreneur, business owner? Would you like to start your own business? Eastern Cape in the house. That is my home province. I am originally from the Eastern Cape. Although Josie's had me for 33 years now, it's a long time. I need to relinquish that Eastern Cape title at some point. From the south of Joburg, Ennerdale, welcome, guys. And Pretoria, of course, we see you. Good to have you. All right, fantastic. All right, just a couple more seconds. I hope you guys are feeling good. You've got your coffee, you've got your pens and notepads. We are about to get going. All right, everyone, welcome to today's online conversation to innovate with, of course, and I mean this most sincerely, the ultimate incubator in South Africa, the Innovator Trust. And what we're discussing today, of course, is business acumen and the blueprint thereof. And will introduce them shortly, but I am surrounded by or joined by a stellar panel who's going to be taking us through this today. As I said, I'm Kim Jansen, and as always, it's a pleasure to be with you. Now, everywhere you look, small business owners, SMMEs are doing absolutely incredible things. As the young people will say, they are doing the most. They're designing, consulting, coding, creating. But what really sets a thriving business apart, and I'm sure the gentlemen online will agree with me, is the know-how behind the hustle. Am I right? It's that sharp understanding about how money, markets, leadership, and decision making all come into play and really turn your efforts into enterprise. And today's session is really about that, building the kind of business acumen that helps you grow with purpose, scale with confidence, and of course, lead with clarity. And as I said, we have a stellar lineup of panelists with us. And they are no strangers to you. I'm going to start off with Sir Bertram Richards. I'm going to ask you, gentlemen, to unmute yourselves because this is a conversation that we are going to be engaging with everybody throughout the next hour and a half. Now, Bertram, you've got over 28 years of experience developing SMMEs across Africa, from Botswana to Ghana, and of course, locally here at home. You're the co-owner of Maven Solutions, and you lead a team of partners that develops innovators from development hubs alongside them. And of course, alongside, I heard you say yesterday, 10 years with the Innovator Trust. Are you sure it's been 28 years? You don't look a day older than 25. Now, you're the strategist.
I have no clues.
You're the strategist behind the strategist, and you've really become the go-to expert for turning complex business theory into practical roadmaps for growth. It's such a pleasure to have you with us. Welcome, Bertram. And our next panelist is Solani Mngoma. He's the founder of Space for Leaders. Now, you're a powerhouse in leadership, Solani, and enterprise development with over 2 decades shaping South Africa's learning and leadership landscape. You've worked with organizations such as Bytes Technology, other incubation hubs, and of course, the Innovator Trust. And you've co-authored, and I love the title, Coach Like Jingles, Manage Like Fergie, using those football analogies, exploring leadership through those metaphors. And you bring a refreshing, really human-centered approach to coaching, proving that leadership isn't taught, it's cultivated, like we're doing today. Welcome. It's so good to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jensen.
Our final panelist is Colin Petrulisho. He is the provincial manager of CEDA Gauteng. Now, Colin, you are the governance and finance expert with a strong grasp of how that entire SMME sector ecosystem comes together. You've got over 15 years in the enterprise development sector. You manage CEDA's provincial network, partnerships, and risk profile. And it is a tremendous pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much. Now, gentlemen,
Yeah.
you saw that we've got people from across the country who are joining us online, and there really is a range. The majority of them are those SMMEs that the Innovator Trust services. And I'm going to ask everybody, please drop your questions into the Q&A. We want to hear from you. This is what's going to make this workshop super exciting, is what is your lived experience on the ground? So I'm going to dive right in. We'll be monitoring those Q&A boxes. And I want to frame the conversation from the outset. We say business acumen, and it's a bit of a daunting terminology. Am I right, Bertram? People look at this and they go, I have to have X amount of degrees, I have to have been in business for 20 years, and then I have got the business acumen. But what does that practically look like for a small business owner who's just trying to stay profitable in South Africa?
You know, the key starting point, there is no right starting point to an entrepreneur. Whatever got you to that journey, got you to make the decision. You could have been a technical specialist. You could have been a retrenched, experienced executive. You could be a fresh graduate. There's a mental tipping point that you get to where it says, I'm going to do this, right? Whether there's a market and excitement and influencer. And so you now go and take a look at the building blocks. Because lots would go off, oh, I need to register a business. And suddenly they're thrown into the compliance aspect. Acumen in business can cover all of the compliance, the recruitment. There's the novelty of I've got something to protect, and suddenly you're immersed into intellectual property protection. Hell, you don't even have staff or business as right? And so your starting point is the one that gives you the most confidence. Understand that aspect, right? And you will know the business have building blocks that have to be in place. But your starting point is where you're your strongest confidence. And then we take a look at the pillars.
I love that.
That is really key.
Yeah. The starting point is where your confidence lies. Xolani, you're nodding your head here. From your perspective, what is that business acumen? What does it look like practically?
Thank you, Kim. I think it's an extension to what Bertrand has said. You know, the aspect of building one and ensuring and making sure that you go into a journey with a clear understanding that you're going to build this acumen. As Bertrand has said, building that habit, building the behavior of doing what's right at the right time to the right people at the right place. It is a process. It is a process to build an acumen in any business. And once, as business people, we need to understand that it is not just an off-the-shelf attainment.
Correct.
You build it, experience, take you through the different levels of the different acumen that any businessman will be able, or businesswoman for that matter, will be able to build themselves that acumen.
And that's the inculcating that's coming through there. Colin, I'd love to hear your lens on this from your perspective. You do this on a daily basis. What is that acumen?
Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. I think it's also the ability just to understand, interpret, and act on what business realities are that would, in a way, also ensure sustainability for us as business people in South Africa. We look at profitability as part of that business acumen and social relevance. I also think that it just combines your strategic thinking, your financial literacy, because it is so important for people to look at business or entrepreneurship holistically. So, and when we speak about business acumen, one cannot really not speak about the competencies that a SME or MSME is looking at, and that they are supposed to have, within South Africa. But I think it is important that there's strong financial and commercial literacy that comes through when we look at business acumen. Our strategic and market awareness would come through, as well as customer-centric thinking, because it is how do we get entrepreneurs or MSMEs to start thinking in a specific way so that they would be able to look at, what's happening globally, and they would understand what's happening on the global stage, as well as obviously regulatory and compliance awareness.
Colin, you mentioned something interesting, so I'm going to stay with you for 1 second. You talk about the realities that business face every single day, but there is a reality check. You know, we hear on a daily basis how SMMEs struggle, how they're failing. In your experience, why do so many promising businesses with great ideas, off the back of what you've just said, they've got all the potential in the world, but why isn't that they struggle to grow or survive beyond the first 5 years?
I think part of that would, from a, just a global perspective or holistically looking at it, it would be because of red tape. Red tape is very, very big in South Africa, and we've seen it, how businesses struggle to really, they are able to start businesses. Yes, we always say there's access to finance, but how possible is it for these businesses to access the finance? Is it that it is difficult, the forms that we have to complete, some of the supporting documents that we want, is it really necessary in the type of deals that we are looking at? Or are we trying to really just, make people suffer and struggle? But I also believe that we have to look at, what is the reality in terms of where businesses are started in South Africa. If we look at young people, or the fear of failure for South Africans, it's quite big. We're looking at it at about 50% of people that normally get surveyed speak about how they are fearful of failing with their business endeavors. And that's why it is important that even with the business development services, because that's another one where people think that they are ready to get the finance, but they don't really want to walk the journey with business development. And it is one of the most important things that one can do for a business, is to look at how do you get that business ready, not only for financing, but as a business that would be able to get sustainable, and then it would have longevity in the long run.
I mean, you're touching on something there which will get to that ecosystem that every SMME needs. Bertram, you look like you're chomping at the bait and you want to add to that. Please jump in.
I think, one of the things that I have seen more recently, and especially with the young and the technology, the ability for the companies to adapt and respond. The pace of change in certain sectors is so fast that a 5-year business plan does not work. In the ICT, we've down to 3 years. The rate of change of the tools and the landscape, if you are in software programming and systems, right, is literally 4 weeks.
Wow.
So choosing the right market, because your inability, right, to adapt faster than the rate of change of your market will see you closing.
Wow.
So it's very, very important that the agility of the team, what they hold on to, what they hang on to, because if you recall, we were brought up in the month-end debits. We were in the annual financial cycles.
Correct.
And now you're sitting in a market where that is moving so fast and the decision-making is moving so much quicker. That is a huge amount of pressure. So it's not necessarily an explanation, but when we look at it, at those who failed, it's the inability to adapt in a very fast-paced environment.
I love that. So it's the inability to adapt, and things are just now. You're going to touch on this, all three of you, later on. The tools, the AI that we have, should be those tools that are helping you adapt faster. But Xolani, I want to ask you a slightly different question compared to the question that I've just asked. I want to know from you, what are some of the first warning signs when you start dealing with a business that they lack the acumen that they need, just the basics, just to get the basics right? Just give me 3 of those signs that we need to look out for.
Thank you, Kim. Firstly, whenever I engage a business individual, I always say planning is what will sustain your business. And the lack of sufficient planning, and maybe just the lack of sufficient definition of why you're in business. A lot of people say, I'm in business to make money. And for me, that's an end goal. That's when the business is succeeding, when the business is flying out there. But we basically plan to sustain and grow our business. And if the plan speaks to the sustainability, like Bertrand said, understanding the sector, understanding the agility reforms around the sector that you're in, you plan for that. So it starts with the basic understanding of why you're in business and why you're starting a business. And so that's the first thing, planning to sustain and grow your business. and the rest will follow. When the business exists for the sufficient time, when it's growing at the level it's supposed to grow, then every other thing, making money and so forth, comes in. Secondly, we need to build entrepreneurial characters or personalities.
Yeah.
And one of those things that we negatively speak about, something like being an opportunist. You cannot evade a character of being an opportunist if you are a businessman, because you're always searching around for opportunity, and you're always trying to position yourself to be in the right space for the right opportunity. And it needs us to keep on trying. It needs us to build that character. Hence, when I explained the Acumen element of it is and that understanding of building certain attributes about yourself as a business person. And thirdly, we definitely need to build the attitude of being curious in the sector that you find yourself in. As Petra said, businesses are changing globally and otherwise. And every way, whenever we operate in our businesses, there's a lot of influx, be it competition and so forth. We need to be able to be curious of what's happening around. So we need to be those kind of people that at first we plan to sustain and grow our business. Secondly, we definitely need to continuously build characters of being opportunists. And lastly, we need to be curious about what's happening in your business and around your business.
And I suppose that curiosity links to the character of the opportunist, or building that characteristic. And Colin, we're talking about being the opportunist. Before we get to some practical tools, how do we position ourselves, right, for the right opportunities? Because there's also something around positioning yourself for it. We are told to go to networking events, but their networking events are a dime a dozen. How do you identify where I need to be? How do I position myself as a small business owner for the right opportunity?
I think that's so important, especially for you to meet the right people. And yes, we would speak about networking, but then we also speak about business to business linkages, where businesses need to meet other businesses that is either in the same type of business or other types of business that they can work with. For us also, it is really that outreach. How does an entrepreneur reach out to different stakeholders wherever they are at, so that they can work together, to get to where they need to be? I think another one for us that's very important is really that ecosystem building, instruments that we use, whether it is through surveys where people are able to, have their input, and not only the input, but that input being shared, so that they are able to see what it is that other people within the space are doing. But then, social media has become such a big influence in business people's lives. And we want them to use social media to the benefit of the business. I think that in South Africa, we've seen what social media can do for business people, and how businesses have just erupted and evolved using social media. And I think that we can definitely learn from.
I love that. Bertram, again, you're nodding and smiling. What do you want to add to that before we go on to this tool that I'm going to ask you to lead us into, called the Business Model Canvas?
Sure. With so many, just what we're seeing is that there are generations in the startup space, and the differences can come through. The social media, it has its own language. One of the risks and benefits is that at different generations, you actually have them saying the same thing using different words.
Sure.
And it is a development area. So when we talk business acumen, it's also the language of use that they need to understand when they are engaging with a fund and financing or an investor, when they're engaging with. So there is an ongoing area of development. Again, depending on your starting point, you could come from where the definitions have been created in such a way that it's not actually the business definition, it is an internal definition. Corporates, we love to create a language. And suddenly you find yourself independently and you're going, oh, but the business school, Harvard says this is the definition, but my boss said this is the definition. So covering all of that aspects is that skill of understanding the language used universally by business, so that textbooks, so that formula makes sense.
Bertram, I want to stay with you for a second. Kalani, I'm going to come to you right after this. But on your screens now, you see something called the business model canvas. Can you just touch on this? And I'm asking you specifically, Bertram, because you said that 5-year plan is not relevant right now. You know, the big business model, or the big business plan, before we even get to that point, because of the rate of how quickly you need to adapt as a business owner, why is this tool such a great one to have in your toolkit? And for everybody online, we will be sharing this with you afterwards as well.
Sure. So this model canvas, it breaks, there are 9 building blocks.
Yeah.
It is a simple but a universal tool to bring you very focused areas within the business. From the sector, the layout of the business model canvas, and just briefly, is not luck, right?
Yeah.
It has a very specific layout. When you look at it on the right-hand side, the customer segment, the customer engagement, the opportunity sits on the right. On the left-hand side, that investment in your assets, your staff, your team, and operations, right, to capture the opportunity you've identified on the right. So it reads like a bit of a maths formula,
Yes.
you know, A plus B equals C, and you're reading left to right, because that's how you spend your time.
Yeah.
In the middle is the vision that captures, that's that brain thought of you. I've seen something on my right, I'm going to build on my left and bring the two together. And when you take a look at it like that, you are able to separate and go a deep dive just to have a focused look at areas for opportunities, for improvements. Right? But when you step back, you realize that there are all these variables that come together, because business owners sometimes forget the amount of things they juggle in their heads, the amount of things that they consider by the time a decision is made is often underestimated. A price is not done in isolation. A target market's not in isolation, because you can have a challenge of not having capacity, which is listed on the left-hand side, but you get excited about a market that you've identified on the right. So when these things are out of sync, it really plays itself out. And it's a living tool. Business Model Canvas and the founders, which is a what they call a common shares tool, is there for thinking. And that's how it should be used.
I like that. It's there for the thinking, and it's a living tool. But maybe let's, we can see the different areas on screen. Kalani, talk to me about value proposition. So many times we hear that, what's your VP? What's your value proposition? But it really is, when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, from a business acumen perspective, what would you say to everybody that's dialed in today? What is that value proposition, and how do I get there? Oftentimes people are saying, I know I need to do this, but give me the how.
Thanks, Kim. In twofold. So simplicity, the value proposition, is that unique identity that accelerates the growth and the sustainability of the business. And now unique is broad. You can actually identify what defines you in the market, as Bertrand has just said. But generally, when we speak of value proposition, it's going back to the basic fundamentals and how Acumen leads into one positioning their value ahead of the competitor or the next business. And what is your value saying about the cash that comes into your business? What is your value proposition that says about the profits that you make? What is the value proposition saying about the assets that you build over time? What is the value proposition saying about the growth of the business and ultimately the people, both internally and externally? What does that unique selling point or that unique value proposition that you are proposing to your identified customers as an immediate sustainable solution? So as I said, that it is that creative thinking around the inception of the business, sustainability of the business, and just the general growth of the business, but linking it to the 5 fundamentals of any business conversation, which is cash, profit, assets, growth, and the people, both internally and externally.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kalani. And Colin, maybe you can touch on the key activities. Sometimes we launch a business, right? And we know that we just discussed it now. Bertram, you said there are so many things that run through your mind on a daily basis from the decision-making aspect as well. But how do I identify what those key activities are for the business?
I think it is important to look at your activities and understand that this is what's going to assist you in taking your business forward. Those activities that's going to make sure that you are able to run your business on a day-to-day basis. I think, what we've done, because we use the business model canvas within the organization on the businesses that we assist. And what we've done is we needed to understand what it was that would make us, let these businesses stand out from where they are. So you would look at what is internal or what is core internally. You would look at your support that you will then be giving internally, whether it's finances, whether it is your staff, etc. How do you make sure that you are able to do that? You also then look at what you would do externally in terms of supporting that ecosystem that might support you, partnerships that you might bring on board that would be able to support you, and the activities within that partnerships that would allow you to take your business to the next level. I think it is important that one then understands that these activities would not be able to, live on its own, but it's actually part of a bigger system that would make this business model canvas to really work, and we drive it in a specific, way and area.
And then, Colin, maybe just staying with you for just a minute longer. When you look at the canvas that we have on our screens, if you had to, and I know that Bertram, you mentioned it's not anything in isolation; everything works together. But Colin, if you had to give somebody advice when they're starting off with this, looking at customer relationships, they might be sitting here today going, I don't have the customers yet, or I don't know where to find or expand my customer base. I've got maybe 4 or 5 that I can depend on, but I need to have 15 to remain sustainable. Give us some advice around that customer relationship aspect, because that is critical for anybody. You could have 1 fantastic or 10 fantastic customers for 10 years.
Certainly. I think in terms of customer relationships, so what is important is that you look at holistically, because remember when you started the business, you were solving a problem. And when you look at your customer relationships, you're going to look at who are you solving this problem for? And therefore, those people would then become your customer. And once you know who your customer is, for you to be able to, build those relationships, you need to understand what it is that you need to do to get those relationships to the point where they are, and I'm going to say it plainly, so bringing money in for you, because ultimately you want to, be profitable. You want to make sure that the customers that you have is returning customers, and that they would not be once off, but they would come back into your business, and they would be able to do what it is that they need to do to, purchase from you or stay the customer for as long of a period as they are able to. I think we also look at some of the segments that we need to prioritize within, your customer segments, and what we do is we're looking at what it is that they bring in, the technology that's used. Are they ready for that technology? As well as, how do you increase your conversion rate? Where perhaps it was a potential customer, now you are able to, through certain things that you are able to, prioritize and give to the customer, now you can convert that to a customer that would be able to come back. I think it is also important that one then realize in terms of your customer that you will have to link that to your partnerships. Because if you are a business that want to grow in the future, that partnerships is as important as what your customer is, and therefore you would also then look at what type of partnerships that you want to bring on board that would assist you in terms of not only keeping your customer but also to bring in new ones.
And I think we're going to touch on identifying those key partnerships shortly. But Xolani, I have a question from our SMMEs that have joined us online. So I'm going to direct that to you. It is a broad one. It's a big one. You might not be able to answer all of it right now. But somebody says your work developing leaders, yours in particular, Xolani, they're addressing this to you, is crucial. But I have a fundamental question. what is the ultimate purpose of the leadership in business? Are we training leaders to be more effective managers within the existing extractive system, to run better branches? So I think what they're wanting to know now, what is that system that we can use as Africans in particular that challenges the foundations of what exists, basically?
Thanks, Kim. And thanks for the question. And I think the question says, where does leadership, or how does leadership integrate in business? And
yes. How are we
generally
doing? What's the point there? Yes.
What's the point? And generally, when we in business or running business, we channeling structure, coordination, and direction, and through that, the attributes and the crucial skills that one as a leader needs to enforce direction, to enforce coordination, and to enforce structure. You need to be able to lead those kind of components. Now, with any leader, there are certain things that your processes, your people follow, right? Over and above you just being a CEO, and we follow the fact that you are a CEO, but people follow the performance. Now we look at how you change, and we look at how you impact, and you look at how you then contribute to the larger economy, the kind of performance that you bring in an environment that then enforces us to follow you, because you are our leader. So in the leadership development conversations that we have with business people, it's just that an assurance to the leaders to say, never mind the idea, as great as the idea could be, but if there's no direction, structure, and purpose, and now we need someone to drive that. We need someone to drive that. We need someone to be aware of what's happening in the sector, the changes, like Colin has just said. We need someone that's going to be able to be looked upon, and people follow that. Not just follow the fact that I'm the CEO, but we follow the performance, we follow the personality, and we follow everything about this person. And that's why leadership is crucial when you integrate it with the management aspect of any business.
I like what you're saying, and if I can just mirror back what I'm hearing, what you're saying is that there is a formula that works, when it comes to leadership and to the development. And there's actually a second part to this question. So thank you so much, Xolani, for starting us off. But they are saying that they are building a community-owned energy and data infrastructure. Is that the kind of leadership? Colin, maybe, and Bertram, maybe the two of you can jump in here. Is that the type of leadership that we are actively cultivating from an ecosystem support perspective? So they're building this community-owned energy and data infrastructure. Africans and South Africans in particular, we have a word that has become globally popular, and that is Ubuntu. And we build with the community. So Colin, do you have any thoughts around that?
Yes, so absolutely. I think that if we can just have more of Ubuntu, because I think that we sometimes forget where we come from as a people. And I always say, before we are business people, we are human beings. And by being a human being, you are able then to, look at what it is that you can do from a leadership perspective. I think within the ecosystem, and building just on the ecosystem that we currently have within entrepreneurship and MSME development, is that we are looking at how do we get this ecosystem to evolve and to work together. Because you see, previously it was about what am I going to get out of it? Because I've got targets that I need to report on. I need to look good so that I can get, but forgetting about the MSME that's at the end of all of this. And therefore, we need to start looking at, how do we create leaders? But we can only create that when we stop looking at, targets and what it is that I need to do to fulfill what is expected of me from an APP or an annual performance plan perspective, but really looking at leadership from a perspective of saying that, irrespective of this, I know that in our country, and especially on MSMEs, this is the type of leader that we need. And therefore, I'm going to put in my money, I'm going to put in my time to create those leaders. We've got different, interventions that we have currently from a mentorship and coaching perspective, we are running the United Nations program where we're looking specifically at the jockey and not the business per se, because before the business, there was the jockey. And the jockey is most probably a husband, a wife, a mom, a dad, an aunt and uncle. And you, as the leader, must be able to still take on those roles. And then you must still be able to, create this business that's going to make money for you and your family. And therefore, it becomes important that even the jockey itself, we need to look at. I think having said that, when we look at all of this, cooperatives becomes a very big and important, type of business for us as well, because it is not something that is an afterthought, but it is how do you create that leadership, those opportunities for cooperatives as well within the ecosystem, and making sure that they are able to flourish as businesses, wherever they go to.
And that's such a beautiful support to this community and Ubuntu style of building not just the individual, but the entire community along with them. Bertram, I need to come to you, but I'm going to stay with you for one more question, Colin, because I know that we only have you for a few more minutes. And that I want to go back to the partnership aspect that we saw on that business canvas. And a reminder to everybody online, you will be receiving this afterwards as well, so that you can make use of that tool. It's a great practical tool to put into, to implement from day one. But Colin, how do you identify those key partners? Maybe give me 3 things as a business owner that I should be looking out for, because there are many people that are going to look attractive, seem like they've got your interests in mind, but what do I need to identify to say this is the right business partner for me? And partnership can be anything from, training support. It doesn't necessarily have to mean selling a portion of my business or giving a portion of my business away. But from a partnership perspective, I mean ecosystem, basically.
Correct. So in terms of partnerships, and partnerships is very crucial in any business. I think when we look at partnerships, especially for small businesses or MSMEs that we assist, we normally tell them that you need to be able to map the partners that you are going to work with. And how you're going to map those partners is you looking at what is it that I need within the business. As part of your business plan, you would normally say that, this is the type of partners that I would like to bring on board. And how you would do that is to say that these are the partners that will assist me to take my business from point A to point B. And through that, you would look at, what it is that the vision is of the business, how you see yourself, the longevity of the business, what it is that the business is going to do moving forward. If you are going to add more services to the business, you would then also bring in those kind of things and map them out as part of your partnerships. But partnerships in itself is, what is it that these specific businesses are able to assist me with to give a better service to my customer that would assist me to become a better business, and so that people know about me out there. They will also become those partners that will speak about me within the ecosystem and speak about the work that I'm doing. And by doing that, you then know that these partnerships are going to be partnerships that's going to be lasting, because you won't be the only one getting something out of it, but they, as the partner, would also get something out of it. And that's why we always, look at them as win-win partnerships. It's something that you get out, the partner must be able to get out something as well. I think it is also about, how do I establish myself within the market for partners that would generally come to me and say, hey, I actually want to become your partner. Not you only going out and looking for partners, but they would see the type of work that you do, and therefore they would want to become your partner. I think for us also, it is really creating those platforms such as stakeholder engagement events, where you would, speak about what it is that your business does, and then you would have a call for partners that would come on board, because now they understand where you are at in terms of your vision. They would understand where you are at in terms of your performance, your plans that you have, and therefore now they have the opportunity to say, you know what, I see that what I have in mind is exactly what these guys are doing, and therefore I would like to partner with them.
And that's such a beautiful segue into the question that I'm going to ask you, Bertram. But Colin, I know you need to run, so I'm going to say on behalf of the Innovator Trust, thank you for bringing your voice into the room, and more than that, bringing your knowledge and the practicalities into the room. We wish you a wonderful day further. And of course, I know that you will join us in future for these conversations to innovate.
Well, most definitely. I would just like to leave this because I've seen the question on cooperatives. We've just, with the SEDFA being established on the 1st of October, we've got a dedicated cooperative division now, where we're looking at the banking side of cooperatives, but we're also looking at cooperatives where we register them and all the other type of interventions that we have. So I want to say to the people that's on the platform that from a cooperative perspective, you are more than welcome to have conversations with us, because there's such a myriad of different services that's being offered to cooperatives at the moment, because it's not just a by the way, but it is actually a business, type that we want to see flourish and that they become more in the country. I mean, we know Sanlam, we know GWK, those were started as cooperatives and they've become quite big businesses. But I want to say thank you to the Innovator Trust for allowing me to be part of this conversation this morning. Thank you.
You are so welcome, Colin, and thank you for being on the ground and doing the work. Have a wonderful day further.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody, we are still here. We are halfway through our conversation. Please drop your questions into the Q&A box, and we will absolutely get to those questions and get through as many of them as possible. But Bertram, I've got, and Kulani, there's one question before I get to a question that was directed at you, Bertram. We've just spoken about the partnerships, and I loved what Colin said about maybe you host that stakeholder engagement function. Maybe you host it. I never thought about it that way. We're always thinking about what's out there that I need to get to, but maybe you host it. Now, talking about something like that, here's the practical question. How do I approach potential partners? I think that's where the difficulty and the trick and sometimes the resistance comes in, because you think to yourself, what if they say no? So what would you advise to say, how do I approach those partners?
Profiling your target partner is really, really important.
I like that.
Because it allows you to manage the expectation, do the background homework, understand the landscape where they would like to engage. Because a partner, at the same time, when a partnership is formed, a trust has happened between two entities. But you'd never know the background checks that's been done. So you can cover your fundamentals, take a look at your social media, take a look at what your clients are saying, what your references are saying. That's the best sanitized background check that can happen on you.
Yeah.
Okay. It is setting up that engagement to say, do I meet you at your office, or do I want you to come into my place at the same time, do a show and tell? Do I rather meet you at a conference where the entire setting is business minded and we immersed into a sector activity? I could want to be a fiber guy and I'm going to meet Vodacom at africa.com, right?
Yeah.
I know it's going to have the latest gadgets. I'm going to understand there's going to be a forum, a discussion of what's critical. And right there, I can decide if the partner is in sync with me or actually we are complete opposites. So it's a bit of a setup, but it's not a vindictive setup. This is not a canned hunting. This is all part of preparation, right? And then go armed knowing what your offering is. Because if someone gives you 30 seconds, 20 seconds, they talk about the elevator pitch. That is real, right?
Yeah.
If the person is busy eating at the lunch, please do not give your business card and go, we got to meet, right? I know there are guys in this program that will follow you to your car. Cheslin, I'm not talking about you, but they would go and immerse in that personality. Now, not everybody has that personality type though. So key thing around profiling is the engagement style that makes you comfortable so that you can show your best foot. And don't be afraid to use members in your team, right?
Oh, I like that.
You go through with that because again, you could have this extroverted who breaks the ice, who gets you, right? And we've had some alumni within Innovator where the guy says, take the conversation to this point and then get them in front of me when I can open my laptop, because I'm the laptop guy. But then we've calmed them down, right?
Yeah.
And so partners can be capacity partners. It can be finance partners. It could be marketing access partners, understanding that profile, because you can't have unfair expectations on someone. Someone literally may say, listen, I've got the number. I can do a warm or cold call. That's a
Yes.
linkage, right?
Yes.
But if someone says, I've got ISO certifications, I've got capacity, there's a legal document, I've played the role of back-end capacity partnerships.
Yeah.
Great. And so the right headspace in the right environment is for me that prep around the partnership side. And Innovator Trust does this networking event. We've got the Women in Tech coming up. Right? It is going to be an aggressive networking event that takes place. But with a positive space, you may find exactly that tipping point partner in a space like that. So that's the...
I love that. And I think that's a key thing is even when you're in the room, read the room to know when to approach them. And somebody says, Andiswe says, is it Andiswe? No, it's Mr. Manning that says, don't be afraid to use members in your team. What a great insight. Because so often, especially for SMMEs and the small business owner, we take on that need, and sometimes it's something that we create in our own minds that says, I need to do everything myself. I can't place that expectation on our team. And so that really is some great insight there. Tlolani, what do you have to add to that question? Yeah. How do I approach the potential partner?
Thanks, Kim. I think what's important is just to underline the word key. Yeah. Very important, and understand that from the understanding of the word key, that's what pushes you. And identifying, as Bertram says, identifying key partners for your business and your growth is really profiling that partner and understanding what you as a business stand for. I always say that the identity of the business, the personal identity of the business, and the professional identity of the business is what really connects and collaborates you with the partners that you require for your business. So when you understand ethically as a business, when you understand your integrity or your integral component of your identity, and when you understand the kind of value that you provide as a professional entity to either the ecosystem and the partners that you've identified, it's easy, becomes easy for you to then, as you profile those partners, you align yourself with people that you'll be able to collaborate with. A lot of things that, in most cases, the common mistakes that we do as partners or in identifying partners is because we want to partner with people that have a certain profile, but that profile doesn't sync with the level of the business that you're in or the direction that you're growing towards. So because of a certain brand or a certain business that is known for 1, 2, 3, you want to partner with that person, but that fundamental exercise of profiling that particular partner and understanding what is their personal identity, what is their professional identity, is it syncing with the kind of business that you're trying to build and the kind of level that you grow into. And that's where you find yourself not collaborating with partner because you are different. So profiling the partner and understanding who you are, your brand awareness, your brand identity, it connects you with the people that will then be key to your business.
What I'm hearing, thank you so much, Tlolani, but what I'm hearing coming from that comment is finding partners with the same value system. Bertram, what do you have to say again with that? Because so many times people think I need to look at what's just complementing my service and what I can offer. But there is a and it goes back to Tlolani, what your speciality is, and that's cultivating the right characters within the business leader. Can you unpack that profiling the key partner in terms of values, aligned values?
Yeah. So if I could give an input before Kalani comes in, that values is so key because the culture of the organization, right, is held together by its values. The way that communication takes. We've got industry KPIs, standard, right? You've got an investor who says, I want 10% return. You have a bond on your property, where your factory, your machinery, everything's sitting at. Those are hard coding, right? But then you've got this interaction between the partners, between clients that takes place. It is not only what you do with your profit that has got a value statement, it is how you engage as an entity between each other that also will show all the way through. And then how do you deal with satisfied or unsatisfied clients? Is there an empathy aspect which is common? Because if there's misalignment in terms of a culture fits and in terms of values, somewhere it's going to break. Perhaps the extra time you need to work overtime, perhaps going beyond the call of the specifications. Very, very key. And that becomes an extension of your brand later on. And like Kulani says, when people get to know you, talk about you, it is a home not just for the business model, it's the home for the culture. And that's what that alignment is so key on.
I love that it's the home for the culture. And we've seen so many times the significance of that business culture in sustaining the entire corporation. And just a reminder to everybody online, we're actually discussing the key components, if you didn't realize by now, of that business canvas model. And so you can see how everything, absolutely everything fits together. We've discussed quite a bit on the key activities and the key partners. So maybe let's look at the big one that people are or SMMEs often focus on, and that's the cost structure and the revenue streams. Now, the canvas encourages Kulani entrepreneurs to examine their cost structure and revenue streams. What's one practical tip that you could perhaps give for balancing these when cash flow is unpredictable? And let's be honest, when we're starting a business, the cash flow is unpredictable, especially when you haven't built up that pipeline or that client base. Just give us one tip on balancing those streams.
Thanks, Kim. The understanding of the level of growth that your service or your solution can grow up to your customer gives the direction in terms of the cost structure. And what do I mean that as a tip is understanding the service and the solution that you're providing. Understand how that can grow, the level of your service and your solution, how it can grow. But when if I'm a small business and I'm providing this solution, but I know that this solution is what is required by my segmented customers, I know the potential at which the cost of the service and the cost of this product that I'm selling to my customer, how it can grow. So understand from just a breaking point of view that how much did I use or how much did I incur to make the solution? How much can I start benefiting and profiting from this solution? But in the next 3 years, with this service and this experience, how much can I then grow up to with this cost? So understand the value of that service and how much it can grow to your segmented customers.
That's a really, I like that explanation. And maybe, Bertram, you can add to that. But before you answer, we have launched a quick poll. We want to know, and we'd love to hear from everyone that's on the call this morning. We want to know, what's your biggest challenge area? And you can just select one of those challenges in the poll. And perhaps we can maybe speak to that once we get all the answers in. But we'd like to know, when it comes to running your business, which area is the biggest challenge? And Bertram, just continuing that conversation now with what Kulani just said, what's a practical tip for balancing your cost structure and your revenue streams when cash flow is that unpredictable?
Okay. Understanding where your cost is coming from.
Yeah.
Small businesses, agility and running lean, right, is really a foundation of small business. Very often entrepreneurs won't pay themselves. We understand they take lean to the next level. Okay?
Yeah.
But that commitment to a fixed expense, you need to understand, and when you make that decision, the entire system must support that cost.
Sure.
If you are putting fixed expenses against a non-core service, if it is available to be a variable expense attached to the core of the business.
Yeah.
So we all know the ad agency world.
Yeah.
There's a staff dedicated to a key account. Key account goes, staff don't ask. It ain't a CCMA, it ain't a dragging. It's a culture of a business model within an industry, right? Various industries have got set business models. And it's there for a reason. It's because it's been financially sustainable.
Yeah.
And all of your competitors are running with it. Your benchmark is your industry and your peers. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you see that a cost aspect, when you're doing it and someone is constantly beating you on price,
Yeah.
try and understand in the detail, have you changed the business model and left behind points? And so your price is no longer competitive. Is there fixed expense that you have held onto, whether it's been an emotive or otherwise, right? And now it's coming all the way through to your pricing and you are losing work. Right?
Yeah.
Constantly benchmark your pricing and costing model. Understand what is changing in the industry. You can find it by conference, you can do research, or you could have peer-to-peer partnerships. Say, this is where we're at. Don't be afraid to get into the detail of that. Naturally do it ethically, but got to constantly relook, why am I winning? Why am I losing? Is there something that I've missed? And this is how new business models are created. And this is what we have seen.
I think I'm going to stay in this, and thank you to everybody who's answered the poll. There's a lot coming out from around the funding perspective, but even the identifying what your value proposition is. That's coming through as a challenge. But let's stay with this, the cost structure and revenue streams from the business model canvas. Xolani, how can businesses or business owners use these blocks to see? And I think this is the problem, right? When we're often launching a business or we are a small business owner, we often undervalue the service or the product that we provide. And there's an underpricing problem because we just want to get the business in. So, how can they use these blocks to ascertain whether or not they are pricing correctly? And how can they use it to fix?
Thanks, Kim. I think what's important again is understanding that there is room for fixing if things are not right in terms of costing, and also it goes back to where you are in a business. But the simple formula, we in business so that we provide solutions that will sustain and grow the business, and the costing structure therefore plays a vital role in ensuring that the ultimate goal is achieved. So within the journey of positioning your product or your solution, marketing it and branding it, you need to get to a point through our Acumen where we can actually cost our service or our solution to a point where it links to the sustainability and the overall success of the business. So to use the block, when you look at the canvas itself, it kind of provides a balance of what cost that comes in and goes out into the business and what foundation is it for. So when you look at the right-hand side of the canvas, it kind of directs you, this kind of cost, what is it holding? When you look at the opposite side of the canvas, it kind of directs you, this kind of revenue, what is it holding? And when we can get the understanding of the fact that each and every cost and revenue that comes into the business, it's primarily used, it's dictated by what the canvas is saying. So it is vital, therefore, to understand, as Bertrand has said, when you understand the cost that came into the solution that you're providing, and when you understand the inflow in what is it that it should carry along for the business in the future, whether 6 months or a year, then you kind of get into a process where you kind of learn about your costing, but moreover, you learn the pace and acceleration in which your costing contributes to the growth of your business.
Fantastic, thanks, Xolani. And Bertram, you are nodding your head there. Please add to that.
I just wanted to give you an example of in the industry.
Yes, with pleasure.
Within the software development, the first models we came out of and in the consulting was to try and sell as many hours as possible. We'll build you your software. Right? It is a old Big Five model. It comes out of the auditing. Every 15 minutes is billable. So we will spend 3 days with a workshop. Listen to everything you have. The more you have to say, the better. 148 pages, great. Right?
Wow.
And then we will go and build hours and hours. And you will find out that afterwards, what we sold was 3,000, 4,000 development hours, testing, scoping, user training, etc. And so it's an exaggerated example, but it's an exaggerate because that was the early 2000s when it came to software. Focus saying, we don't have that kind of outlay. We cannot put that money out for you. Now, if your business model was built off billable hours only, then you were stuck in a space. And that's what the message comes through from your costing. When you see software as a service, many often the developers flipped and said, you know what, I will build the software and I will recover this, but you give me a 5-year recovery period for a contract.
Wow.
And so what I'm putting in now, I'm not trying to get my money out straight away. They changed the business model and we're going into a rental or leasing style of model. Right? Now it's affordable for the client. I still get my return. I now know that for the next 5 years, there's an income that's going to end up coming through and we agree to it. If anything goes wrong, some license don't, and the client just loses a login. Right? But that's an example of where we were stuck in an old system. Software as a service, right, really came to its fruition when we had data centers, when we had connectivity. And it's as good as having that computer sitting with the software on its C drive. So adapting the business model allows you then to go and relook at that costing, right? Because sometimes we try and force a single cost structure into a client and we actually need to adapt.
Yeah.
And this is over the years how you have seen before. How many people have gone to, and had to buy, let me give my age away, you had to buy Microsoft CD, right? And then you went, oh, no, we've moved, now it's download, right? Now, you can't buy a laptop without your 365 and everything sitting on there, okay? It has changed because the cost to the client, but also the ability to carry the cost and recover it over a long period has changed. Okay. And so business models will change. When business models change, the costs change, the way that we do the financial situation changes. And they need to understand that when they're looking at their costs, it's a function of the model that they're sitting with right now, but it could change if they're prepared to change the business model as well.
Okay, fantastic. And I know, Bertram, that is, what the question I'm going to ask. I see somebody is asking the question about the system, and saying that the system is broken, and how do we and that's the challenge. And perhaps both of you can weigh in on this, is that they're saying, you can be part of the system and you can stay in the system if you are part of the system, but the system is licensed software. They're saying that system is broken. Xolani, do you want to maybe speak to that? And Bertram, you can add your thoughts to that as well.
Yeah. So I agree with the question. And I'm not going to be general, not necessarily specific to a certain sector. That systems are a real impediment to much of what we've spoken about, because as we're trying to shape ourselves as business people, we engage the system in any space, in any way. And those are the kind of things that, as part of that character that we build ourselves into, we need to really stand on those broken systems, because as the factors that may disrupt systems or break the systems may always be there, right? And it's not a wished or envisaged environment for any business. But when we look back at what compliance can do, just to ensure that as the system is evolving and we're trying to fix the system, or systems that are getting fixed, are you in the right position to then still be significant in that environment? Business is not a problem. It could be that the system is a problem. But what is it that you can do for the system? Is the system being broken enough for you to really delay your acceleration as a business?
Yeah.
So it's something that we definitely need to really go back to the why. Why I'm in business, and how long do I stand, or do I need to stand in the business? And as systems can be disrupted and systems can be broken in many sectors, we definitely need to assure ourselves that compliance and the characters that we need to have as business people, we maintain and sustain those, and we push on. I know we say push on, keep push on, don't give up. Sometimes it's difficult, but the simple sense of it, that when we are ready to work on a simplified system, a correct environment, we need to get ourselves ready. because that system will, with hope, will definitely be corrected, and we should be ready to work and be significant in that corrected system.
And I love what you're saying there, is that there is something changing in the background. We may not see it right now, but if you want to win the game, you've got to know, or play the game, you've got to know the rules of the game. So Bertram, what are your thoughts with that? Based on that question and what Kulani just said.
I think just on that, and I've seen there was a couple of questions from Bosaletse in the same vein, right?
Yeah.
And there's, I guess, a bit of good news and bad news around it. Firstly, in terms of software, in terms of licensing, in terms of AI, and that, just as a broader software, there are two very different industries. There is a global movement of software and software developers on the open source that is free licensing, accounting systems, ERP systems. Every single system that we operate has a free version. And it's not a little version. It is by heavy development. OpenAI and the ChatGPTs are built on free software. It is not paid software, right? So it is actually doing the research and going into what it is that you're looking for. You can have the free model. The problem comes in is that when you're sharing a file, unfortunately, it may be to an accountant who's using a licensed system and it's no longer integrating. So you can have an entire business community that uses free and it works. That's great. As soon as you move outside of that system, that's going to cost you. And that forces you to go, oh, geez, you know what? I need a software license because my accountant can't open the file. The project management folder doesn't want to open. Yeah? I was part of that movement in support of open and free software systems. They exist. For a number of years, I had the fortune of engaging with India as well. And again, to one of his earlier arguments, we have got very good, strong developers. We've got a huge culture in the industry. When I used to talk about Microsoft Excel and Word, the guys went, what? Yeah. We built our own Excel and Word document system. Yeah. We didn't have to have a Microsoft version of it. So keep exploring. I think the one thing is we just got to watch the negativity of closing off. It's actually just a research message that needs to take place. But keep your energy around where the software is absolutely critical. Right?
Yeah.
That is key. Keep going in and understanding what's that model behind the pricing, the systems, and the licensing. Right? Because that's exploratory energy. That is just not, it could be born in frustration. It could be born in terms of budget. Right?
Yeah.
But don't stop that side. But I can tell you the depth and the volume of resources globally, right, is an entire discussion. And you can reach out to me as well. That they are there, right? It's what you're going to do with your software in the end to run your business. Software must never stop you from being able to do what you need to do in your business. It is a tool. And so that's just my story in terms of that.
And we're going to come to some of the tools. And maybe before I get back to some of the questions that I have, because believe it or not, we've only got about 20 minutes left. We've already been through so much of the business canvas as we've been talking. And when you get the tool in your hand, you'll understand it. But one last question, he says, and I love that Bosaletse thinks that we have that much sway on government, because they're saying if that is the case, why don't we help government to move into Ubuntu and move away from Microsoft? But it's not as black and white, right? As that. And I don't know if there's a diplomatic way of answering that, Bertram, perhaps.
Open source systems across government actually do exist. The problem is that all systems exist within government.
Yeah.
Right. Data, cybersecurity, and all of those sit in, but you have to have both. Because you're accommodating a global engagement and interaction. So, as opposed to being restricted to one, right? You're going to have folk interacting with the government from a private sector who use Microsoft.
Yeah.
You are going to have those who require. You cannot be dictatorial as a government and say one system. You need to be all embracing as a government. So let me come open source. Let me come the commercial. But No matter who you are on what system, you will pay tax. So, and a government is an enabling body that needs to land up catching. If you find on one day your rates bill that says there is a line item because this government is using this software, right? It will give you a fantastic opportunity to go, we don't need to. Go into the local municipalities, you will see the system options. We had SAP software, one of the most expensive ERP systems that's out there. It is very broad, right? But you've got to get down into the particular detail when it comes to software, but it needs to be embracing. You're going to see the development in data centers. It's never just software. We're also seeing data, where the servers are sitting. And I think just to one of the other points, African data centers is one of the largest, most prolific data centers on the continent.
Correct.
The owner is from Zimbabwe. It is African owned. Right. The systems and the AI tools sitting in there and the development. So don't lose hope. So let's say it is not a West versus Africa situation. Right? It is the scale of the footprint of the West, but it's not in the absence of African technology or expertise. Okay. So again, keep that digging and keep that question coming through, but there are certain answers. Their marketing may not just be as good as Microsoft, right? And it's getting there. Terraco, African, young, massive footprint when we're setting data centers globally. So, but absolutely.
Thank you so much, Bertram. And I think we could have this discussion at length. So I'm going to park it there for now. And let's get into some other questions, Xolani. I want to go back to one of the areas on the business canvas, and that is skills and priorities. And now I know it's difficult, but if you had to pick one, finance, strategy, leadership, markets, or compliance, which skill should everybody online right now, which skill should entrepreneurs master first, in your opinion?
Yeah, and that's a personal opinion. Okay? Personal opinion. I think the skill of strategy, the skill of strategizing for me, that's a skill that keeps you in the game. It keeps you in the game and sustains you in the game. And on record, all skills are important from the compliance element and all throughout leadership. But the strategy, a skill, can build and can provide a solid foundation for all the other skills to find a safe space on. So the harnessing and the watering of strategizing your idea to fit the expected solution in the different times that your business is going onto. It's a valuable skill when you're able to see things coming and be agile to those things that are coming and relevant to the times that your solution is operating at that point in time. And that comes from that element of being able to strategize and be able to read data that is in the sector and aligning yourself to what is happening and where the sector is going and how relevant are you going to be today, tomorrow, and the next 3 years.
Thank you so much, Xolani. And Bertram, I want to direct this one to you. I know you and Colin also mentioned it earlier on, the value and just seeing from one of the polls, people are saying where they struggle is being funding ready. When it comes to financial literacy without formal study, what are the simplest ways to strengthen that muscle for the small business owner that you can recommend? Are there tools available? I know that there are tools available, and maybe you can unpack those for us as you give your response.
Sure. So the context of the financial discussion is quite important. Right? Yeah. Before you go out to have the discussion with a funder or investor, there's internal discussions that need to take place. Right? Yes. Firstly, internal systems, be aware of, because when we see a report, it comes from data and transactions that's being captured. Right? So if we can start just with this base start that says our invoicing, the period of the invoices, the system we're currently making use of is accurate, right? Yeah. The cost and the costing model that we have in place is consistent, right? And the transactions that are appearing in my financial system, whether it's Xero, whether it's an open source, whether it's a pastel, okay?
Yeah.
is reflective of the true reality. So the classification of the data, I must be very comfortable before I go and I look at a report to say, hold on, I've got payroll. Oh, hold on, I've been skipping. Wait, there's a bit of personal stuff sitting in here. Because when you go and engage with a funder, you are now opening yourself up to scrutiny and say, actually, if you have the money, come and let me just show you what I've got with me and what's in the business. Your finances talk for you when you're not there. It's going to talk about variable and fixed expenses, right? And so understanding how your report and what makes up your report when you look at it before you go outside is something that you really have to know, have to master and go, what's missing? I want to say, don't let Lynn or Tashlin find that gap for you. You will be punished. And then go through your head scenario. Here's my management accounts.
Yeah.
I had great sales, but it hasn't come through yet. Oh, hold on, my invoices and my data out of sync. I thought we had a spike. The spike is coming after the meeting. This is going to be a problem. The challenge in industry when you're doing funding applications is that there are hardly any people around anymore. There will be a computer with a mathematical forming assessing what you have tabled. So clean data, critically important because you're going to feed a system where there are no people. I tried applying for a bond. They told me only by the time I need level 3 will I actually see a human.
Wow.
Right? It's workflows. So this is a bit of what has changed. So your financial literacy is you understanding internally, my system is putting out and reflecting exact the true reality.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to engage potentially with a human being. And there the discussion is going to come and say, am I investable? Am I going to be able to access a facility which requires me every month to pay back? Or am I going to talk to a venture capitalist that says, you know what, we understand, right? Flexibility, national empowerment, IDC, they're there to support a global growth and national growth of the country. But in 12 years' time, that fund needs to be paid back.
Yeah.
So the context of that conversation you're going to have must be brought in when you review what you're sitting with. And now we can go in and saying, each scenario is different. I'm going to ask purely for an overdraft.
Yeah.
What's that going to mean? My cash flow supports a monthly commitment of repayment. I'm going to talk to a shareholder who's going to be working capital, different mindsets, right? They understand there ain't no dividends in year 1 or 2, right?
Yeah.
This is where the deep conversations with organizations like Chislin has, okay? When is that payment coming through? Someone will end up wanting to say, show me your annual financials. That's that long-term commitment. There are a couple of ratios or financial ratios that often get thrown in. And there's the language, you know, when we spoke about acumen right at the start, there's this financial acumen that needs to show itself when we talk in terms of the finance. And that is the ability to engage in a financial conversation with the context of what's happening. If somebody says, you know what, great, but I want a convertible note. What does that mean? I think we're going to swap this for equity. Okay.
Yeah.
Because your market is growing. So there are elements in your numbers that can either be assessed by a computer or a mathematical formula or a human. You can go in and think, I've got a great story. Sheesh, nobody wants to hear me because there are no people. Real. That is what we sit with right now. And so take the context, have your base clean, true data. Right?
Yeah.
And then go and do yourself your liquidity ratios. Go and do your cash flow, right? Because you're going to be compared by an industry benchmark. And that is ratios. It is going to be percentages. Are you promising something which no one else is doing? Red flag. Yeah. Unfortunately, in the space, and it's the first thing, finances, there are less people that you're engaging with. You're dealing with a maths formula, and the emotion has been stripped out of it.
And having said that, though, once you know what the formula is, right, that's the beauty of having a formula especially for us as small business owners, then you can just start duplicating and replicating. But going from that financial acumen, let's switch a little bit, Tolani, to that tech acumen. A lot of business owners will say, I'm not a tech person. I might be in the ICT space, but I'm not a tech person. But how essential is that to the survival and adaptability of SMMEs from a business acumen perspective?
Thanks, Kim. I'm going to make this example. It might not be relative to business, but I just want us to look at the transition from a sportsman or woman to an athlete. And when we speak about tech in particular.
Yes.
So if I'm a sportsman, I just do sport. And I measure my capabilities based on what I can measure them with. But if I want to move from being a sportsman to being an athlete, and I'm going to integrate technology that's going to effectively affect that transition from just being a sportsman to an athlete. Now, it's the tech component into business. When we provide our solutions to our customers and clients, basically, we want to provide the most efficient, effective experience to our customers. And the sector that we operate in dictates that as a tool of efficiency, as a tool of effectiveness, when you just not want to be a sportsman, you want to be an athlete, you need data that's going to drive the transition of being an athlete. And in the business sense, when you are an athlete, you are a person that's competing with what the data tells you, not just for existence, but with what the data tells you. And it's the tech that we are fortunate to be around now that tells us where we are in business, where we need to be in the next quarter, and where we can be in the next 3 years. Because it's data, it's the efficiency that you provide as a solution, is the seamless experience that your clients, whenever they engage you, they get to get from you. Because the data which comes through the tech, fortunately, that we operate in the era where tech is there, and we want to be efficient and effective. So we definitely, as business people using tech, need to move away from just being sportsmen and women, but to real athletes with the right directive and dictates.
And there was a beautiful article that I read not so long ago, directed at SMMEs, saying that the tech can make you the super worker and make your team the super workers to be able to compete in this world. Bertram, before I come to you to wrap it up for us, I'm going to ask everyone online, please participate in the last couple of polls. These polls really give us tremendous feedback and help us curate those conversations to innovate that in such a way that it serves your business needs now. So please answer the last couple of polls. Now, Bertram, I know that one of your loves is obviously technology. Please, can you recommend, what are the digital tools? If you had to identify 2 digital tools that you believe every SMME should have, what would that be?
Only 2.
Okay, name a few. Let's go.
Yeah, and I'm mindful that we have got. So I'm going to take. If I may give an approach. Right?
Yes.
Technology tools are essentially that they are tools.
Yeah.
Right? They need to bring value in the usage, in the way that you operate, in the way that you run the business, in the way that you share. Very, very key. Right? If you are a startup business, right?
Yes.
And you haven't built up your networks as yet, then take a look at the proper use of the engagement of social media, right? In order to create a presence. People don't necessarily know who you are. You may have come from a university, a college, or somewhere that's completely out there, and the only thing you have right now is possibly LinkedIn. Okay. Embrace it as a cluster to create your digital presence, because right now, the chances of you not getting a meeting is because you've failed a standard vetting process of what is your presence right now say before they answer the phone. We used to call them gatekeepers before, right?
Yes.
Before we know you ain't getting to the buyer, there's a buyer's assistant, and now there's another element that's brought into it. based on that phase where you're in. Because you need to research, you need to still get information, especially if you're young. If you're in your early 20s, you're new in terms of a market space, the tools that will help you understand that market segment, that customer, right, is more important right now. Because if you go into a place where you think you've got an idea and there's no market, there is no business. If you're a more established business that's out there and you have teams and operations, and the efficiency improvements really can get felt, right? Because you've invested in a historical model. We're now in 2025. You've got automation, you've got AI tools. I would then focus on the digital tool sets that takes your current operations that you've built over time and makes it more efficient and more agile. And so that could be from a CRM system, that could be from automated workflows. I don't know the power of the agents as yet. We're still busy validating that.
Yeah.
But acknowledge that your experience and your depth we're sitting at. And then just to the last, guys, if you are that end of career, last legacy aspects, and you're busy with the handover, right? Or you know over the next 10 years, you're unplugging. Focus on the tools, right, where your embedded business culture can remain. So whether it is with the SOPs, whether it's in bots, right, whether it's the voice of reason and that aspects, you got to adopt the tools based on the phases of the life that your business is in.
Yeah.
And so that's my holistic approach in terms of the tools itself.
Holistic approach. You mentioned a fantastic one yesterday. I think it was Sandbox by Harvard. So if you're looking for a particular tool, that's one. Bertram spoke highly about this. I even went and had a look at it. And it seems like a great all-encompassing tool, which is fantastic. And Xolani, I want to ask you, we've got 2 minutes left, everybody. So please answer our last poll. As I said, this is the one that helps us curate workshops and conversations that are relevant to you in your business right now. But Xolani, the business canvas model, and we covered every single aspect of that today, not in the right order, I suppose, but as you said, Bertram, these are interlinked. They don't live in isolation. I want to ask you, and before everybody logs off, we have our WIT Awards on the 20th of November. Please head on over to our website for any of the Innovator Trust programs and to find out more about WIT. Bertram, as you said, it is the best networking platform around. So please go and find out more about our Women in Tech Awards on the 20th of November this year. And of course, any of our other conversations to innovate, workshop, and programs on the Innovator Trust website. But Xolani, how do I keep this document alive? People will look at this tool and go, oh, I've done it now, that's it. In your experience, you've got 60 seconds, sir. How do I keep this business canvas tool alive?
Thanks, Kim. The basic understanding that this tool, the business model canvas, it is your everyday interaction map and compass to your growth, sustainability, and ultimate success of the business. The continuous, successive interaction with that compass. It is that one document that engages you with where you are, your direction, and your natural behaviors. That's what the tool can do for you.
Yes, it's a daily living tool. Bertram, any final thoughts around that?
Keep networking, keep growing your network. You can learn from everybody, right? It's learning, constantly evolving, and adapt quicker. Got to adapt if you're going to land up surviving as well. And I want to do a shout out to Boseletsa, right?
Yeah.
That challenging, that thing that is experienced. I will tell him on that. All of the AIs recommended I should take a look at his survey for development and architecture, right?
Yeah.
You've got to have different voices that challenges you. That's out there. Don't be afraid of it. We've got systems that's out there. We've got an open market. BRICS is here, right? Yeah. Your competitor could be 10,000 miles away, but you've got to be ready for it as well. So that's the last message from me.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, Bertram and Xolani. And of course, in his absence, thank you so much to Colin. I think you really made this practical, right? And I think that's the beauty of that business canvas tool, is that it takes the idea of business acumen, something that's abstract, and really brings it home for us. And as Kulani and Bertram have said, keep looking at that tool. We will share it with you. Keep engaging with that tool. So many gems. Peter says, I've learned a lot through the entire session. Cannot wait for the next one. To our speakers, thank you all for your insights. They've been really impactful. And I think that says it all. It doesn't come from me. It comes from the people on the webinar itself. Remember, Women in Tech Awards on the 20th of November. Please head on over to our website to find out more. And of course, about any of the incredible programs that the Innovator Trust is running. Everybody enjoy the day further. Thank you for joining us on Conversations to Innovate. Good luck with the business acumen. I know you're going to become sharper with it. And we'll see you on the next one.